Hit that record button. You ready for it?
Yeah, go for it.
And we're live here on Facebook. I'd like to welcome those listening in podcast land, as also like to welcome my buddy Rich. Rich, how you doing today?
Doing good, Mike. Coming to you from the Illinois side of the Quad Cities today, as we're house sitting this week. So,
Yeah.
while a family member is out of town.
Yeah, so while he's doing that, just a heads up, he might drop out a little bit and he might look a little fuzzy. It's okay. The important part is we get his audio and we get to hear his opinions on what's going on this week. We got a packed show, so let's but you had a good week at work and shorter commute though, right?
Pretty. Yeah, a little bit shorter commute and didn't have to cross the river or the bridge this week. So,
Nice.
pretty good week at work. Nothing, kind of an uneventful week, and yeah, and I saw that you got to do a live esports match this week.
Yeah, it was kind of awesome. We'll talk about that a little bit later on if we get to it. Hopefully we can. But it's going to be a jam-packed show. Yeah, we had a great week. I spent a lot of nights not at home, which is kind of terrible. And I got to do one more next week and one more tonight. And it's just, and then the week after. It's the spring. Lots of concerts, lots of other stuff going on, track meets and all that. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about sports. Rich, man, we got playoffs. We're talking playoffs. And
That's right, we are.
And we're talking the major leagues. What else we got, Rich?
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're going to talk a little bit about the draft. Not necessarily winners and losers, but maybe picks we've liked and kind of maybe some head scratchers, ones we might not agree with, the directions that the teams took. But all that and more, Mike, but what do we got to do first, bud?
Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa. This is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich. And we're back. Sorry, I got a little distracted with other things. And we're back.
Yeah.
So, Rich, man, I haven't done one of those long ones in a while.
Oh, you haven't. So nicely done. So, Mike, we always start our show with a poll question, and this week we are more on the entree side of our breakfast food poll, where we are looking at waffles versus an omelet.
Uh-oh.
So, Mike, where did you vote in this week?
Did I? Oh, yeah. Welp, I've made things very complicated.
Okay. Did you force a tie, Michael?
I just now voted, and yeah, I've created a tie. So,
Ooh.
we go to our resident tiebreaker, Joe Hart.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Hey, you're on Balls and Sticks, the podcast. We have a tie in our poll question. So you're going to be the tiebreaker, like always. We need you to pick between waffles and omelets. Waffles and omelets.
It is an omelet your way. An omelet
your way, however you want it.
Omelets.
Okay. So with that vote, thank you, and we will hang out. So with that, omelets wins. Total of 9 votes. I put Joe Hart's vote as Balls and Sticks votes because that's how we do the tiebreaker.
He is the tiebreaker.
So Balls and Sticks or Joe Hart voted as omelets. We had Pam Hendricks, Rodney Mueller, Rich W. Hendricks, Ashley Lindquist. On the waffle side, we had Matt Johnson. We had me, Mikey Hart, Michael Sable, and Mikey O'Roderer. 3 Michaels.
Yeah, I went with omelets. There's so many ways that you can make them, and especially if you're going to a brunch or to a breakfast restaurant, and especially with the brunch,
and you don't have to do the work.
You don't have to do work, and there's an omelet bar station.
Yeah. Now,
so I didn't consider the hotel style like egg and cheese like omelet that you're just throwing in the microwave.
Yeah, those things are gross.
When I made my vote,
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna give you one that sounds gross. I promise, it's more delicious than you think. Jelly omelets.
Jelly omelets. I've never heard of that combination.
Oh, so good. So good. That's okay. I guarantee you the winning vote was voted upon because of jelly omelets.
Okay. I mean, I prefer when it...
Now Rich.
Go ahead.
When you're eating so let me paint you a picture. You made eggs after church tomorrow, okay? Mm-hmm. You got toast. You got scrambled eggs. On your toast, you put grape jelly. Now, don't you pick up with your bread, your toast, a little bit of the egg, and you eat it? And you get
not really.
Oh well, try it next time.
Okay. So Mike, you went waffles. So why did you go waffles?
Because they're waffles. I love waffles. And waffles. So, Rich, children love waffles. Mm-hmm. My daughter and son both can eat waffles. That's the thing. Like, they're my little one is really he's under 1 year old, but waffles is one of those things that he can still eat. So that's why I picked waffles.
Okay, fair enough. I will have to say I did have waffles for breakfast this morning. They were the Eggo cinnamon sugar, like the mini ones, where it's like 4 mini waffles.
Yeah.
That you kind of pull apart. Really good. Reminded me of my childhood. Between me, Amy, and her uncle, we ate the entire 24-pack box. So
there ain't nothing wrong with that.
It was. No, not at all.
Now,
so I was tempted to switch my vote, but I like waffles too much.
Did you guys have Disney Plus over there?
Amy put on one of the Jurassic Park movies.
Okay, I was gonna say you could have totally completed the Saturday morning experience with waffles, Eggo waffles, and like Recess.
I think she mentioned now all I need is cartoons because she remembered
Disney
she
Plus.
remembered grandma. She remembered grandma making those waffles for her and having and then watching cartoons on Saturdays when she was younger.
All of your childhood memory cartoons, Doug.
See, I remember Doug as more of a Nickelodeon show, not the Disney version.
Not when it was on ABC, and maybe Doug is on there. Doug, Pepper Ann, Recess, Gargoyles, X-Men, the animated series. Boom. And they're making new ones, too. Oh, I can't wait. So good.
All right, Mike. All right, so this week, Mike, we're going to go with Captain Crunch versus Life.
Now, you're saying Captain Crunch, and are you saying the original Captain Crunch? Crunch berries?
Plain Captain Crunch. We've established that we've put peanut butter in. I know for sure we put with Crunch berries.
Yep.
But I'm not sure whether we put peanut butter Captain Crunch. But this is just the plain original Captain Crunch, and the same thing with Life.
Because we had Cinnamon Life like 2 weeks ago.
We did.
Okay.
So this is just Life.
Okay. Let's move on then. Rich, in the NBA, the Nuggets are up 3-0 on the Lakers. Good riddance to them Lakers. Both of us picked the Nuggets to be in the NBA Finals. Game 4 is tonight in LA. You gonna watch?
Probably not. I think it'll be a gentleman's sweep, as they call it in the NBA. So I think the Lakers will win tonight, but then Denver will put the nail in the coffin and finally put them out of the playoffs the next night.
I'm a
The
little.
Buccaneer, yeah, I mistyped that. The Bucks are down 2-1 to the Pacers currently. Game 4 is in Indianapolis
Yep.
on Sunday. That was your pick for the Eastern Conference. My pick of the Celtics are tied to 1-1 with the Heat with Game 3 tonight. And I believe that is down in Miami. Mike, how are our Stanley Cup final picks doing?
Rich, the Rangers are up 3-0 on the Capitals. That's your pick for the Stanley Cup champs. Game 4 is Sunday in DC. I picked the Golden Knights. They are up 2-0 on the Stars. And the Game 3 is tonight in Vegas. Rich,
All right.
do you see what's coming up next?
I do, Mike. Is it a left turn?
Yes, it is. And after that,
Is it another left-hand turn?
it is, because we're heading into the NASCAR corner, presented as always by Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois. Check them out on 5th Avenue for all your sports memorabilia needs, or on their eBay store. They do have a Pokemon card sale going on. I believe it's today. So if you need some Pokemon cards, Rich, go check out Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated. Okay, heading into the NASCAR corner. Last week, they were in the world's fastest super speedway, Talladega. Rich, how'd they do?
Well, Mike, your race winner was Tyler Reddick on a last lap pass of Michael McDowell, having avoided the big one. Mike, my pick of Todd Gilliland came in 8th. Your pick of Ryan Blaney came in 20th, making the score between the two of us 8-6.
Rich, we are
still really close.
Now, did you get to watch the race?
I did. I thought it was a really clean race considering Talladega. And I can't fault Michael McDowell. I kind of feel sorry for him. He was trying to make a block.
Yep.
And between making a block and having the Keselowski not being able to check up, boom. That's what caused the big one.
Yeah.
And caused Reddick to get in and to secure the win.
Yeah. 100%. It's I think it's part of the racing that has to be done down there.
Mhm.
There was some crazy moments in it. It was a good race. I'm not even again, Talladega is one of those racetracks that you and I both understand that a half a second sooner or half a second more and Todd Gilliland could have been in 32nd and Ryan Blaney could have been in 3rd. You run that race 1,000 times and none of the same drivers are in the top 5 except for twice, and it's crazy how Talladega is and how it plays out. And so you can never say you can't say, oh, Mike picked 20 and picked Ryan Blaney and he finished 20th. That's a bad pick. You never know.
Nope.
You never know what's going to happen in Talladega, so you can't really account for so-and-so is better. Yeah, it's just going to be that way. Okay, Rich.
Yeah, on the fantasy side, that's why I normally on the super speedways, I punt that week. I'm going to pick guys that normally run in the back of the pack and save my uses for guys that have a solid track record everywhere and don't. So I pick a lot of super speedway specialists.
Yeah.
For those types of races. Speaking of fantasy NASCAR, the new Dupo won the week at Talladega with 143 points. Mike, you came in second with 136, and I came in last with 128.
Okay.
Overall standings, the new Dupo is in third with 1611. Mike, you're in second with 1744, and I am in first with 1898.
Okay. With that, let's head to this week as we're going to go to Dover for the worth 400. Rich, who you got?
That's well, Mike, for the Monster Mile, I'm going to go with Alex Bowman. The guy, he typically does really well at this track. He has a good history of finishing in the top, getting top 5 finishes at Dover. And I'm going to try and I'm going to see how far into the schedule I can go using this like survivor pick strategy of not duplicating picks. So I'm going to go Alex Bowman, and Hendrick Motorsports gets a win.
Okay. I am going to pick Martin Truex Jr.
All right. I like the pick of Truex. There. He does.
So.
And if the race gets weather delayed and it goes to Monday, he has a good record of finishing first on Mondays, too.
Yep. So, Rich, tell the people why we're leaving what we're doing.
All right. So that was the NASCAR Corner, which is presented by AAA Sports Cards Incorporated. They're down on 5th Avenue in Moline, Illinois, and you can also find them on eBay. And as Mike said, make sure to check them out this weekend as they're having a Pokemon card sale. AAA Sports Cards Incorporated. All right, Mike, from the concrete asphalt of the NASCAR tracks to the dirt on the diamond, we're going to keep making left turns and go to the MLB. This week, the Cubs had 3 games with the Marlins, 3 with the Astros, and 1 with the Red Sox. Mike, I said they'd win 5 games. You went with 4. Mike, they hit the 5.
Good job.
Kind of a disappointing finish with the Marlins, but it's always tough to predict how a doubleheader will go. So to maybe, of those 3 games, only get one of those wins was kind of tough with how well Miami plays, but they rebounded really well, sweeping the Astros and getting a pretty dominating win last night in Boston.
Yeah, they've been doing great. I feel bad that I doubted them a bit. That sweep on the Astros was huge, but it came at a cost, Rich.
It did come as a cost, as Cody Bellinger went down with was it a broken rib or an injury to his rib?
Broken rib.
As
a fractured
broken rib.
Fractured, broken.
Okay. As he's on the 10-day DL, but so far the Cubs are doing well. They got Pete Crow Armstrong up, and he's actually playing pretty well, considering that they were worried about his bat. His bat not being up to major league ready.
I'm excited to see him. I actually thought he would be one of those wait to bring him up to the end of the year type guys, but the need is there, so bring him up when you can. So I think that's a great move. I hope they continue to their winning ways. And so, Rich, let's look at the week ahead as we go into the month of May. Can you believe that it's going to be May already?
I can't. It's flying by. So, Mike, they're going to finish out the weekend in Boston with 2 more.
Yep.
They're going to go to Queens to take on the Mets for 4 games before coming home to take on the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah. So
how many wins out of those 7 games, Mike?
So the Mets are the Mets. So they'll get 3 at least there. They'll take at least 1 more against Boston. I'm going to say they'll take that 1 against the Brewers. We're going to get 5 this week, Rich.
All right. I'm going to go with the under. I'm going to go with I'll take the other one, and I'll go with 4 this week.
Rich, that's still plus. Oh,
I know. Still a good amount of week.
Above 500 still.
Yeah, I mean the Brewers are playing well of late, and I don't know. I'm kind of. I think we're looking at a bullpen game this week with Boston and Jordan Wicks. So I'm only going to go 4.
Okay. I could see that. I'm not mad at it, but I'm going to go with that 5. I like that 5 number.
All right, heading over to the spring football. before we get into the meat of our show, which will be the NFL draft. We just have one game to review as our teams, Memphis and St. Louis, played each other this week, and your St. Louis Battlehawks won the game 32-17. That drops my Memphis Showboats to 1-3. Mike, you're on the flip side of that, as your Battlehawks are 3-1. I didn't get a chance. I still haven't watched a UFL game yet.
I watched a game.
Probably won't. You did watch the game.
I mean, I didn't watch that game, but I watched a game.
Oh, okay.
I think Fox Sports had a replay going leading up to the draft, so I plopped that on and let it play while we were getting dinner ready and hanging out with the family. And then the draft came on, so I turned it off.
Okay. And that's a good transition, Mike, as we have the NFL draft. So do you want to start with the picks we've liked, or do you want to talk about what the Bears have done so far?
Okay. So let's talk about the Bears, because the Bears have made picks that I've liked.
Okay. So
Now,
obviously with the number 1 pick, to nobody's surprise, they took Caleb Williams. And with the 9th pick, they got Rome Odunze.
Right. Now, other things that I want to say. I am basing my appreciation of the Bears draft this year not on the fact that I am happy with the way that they're doing it, but because they've already made the bed. I think they've made the best bed that they can make at this point.
Okay.
I've said many a times on this show, I think the best bet would have been to keep Justin Fields, trade that pick down, and load up. They didn't do that. So, we now have Caleb Williams. I think he looks like he could be great. I'm still scared that Chicago's not going to know what to do with him. And so because of that, I'm skeptical on that side. But they did get they get the number 1 quarterback in the draft by far and away. Then I think they got one of the top 2 wide receivers in the league, or in the draft, with their pick. I'm amazed he dropped that far. But then I look and I'm like, well, man, the title of the show, 6-12. We've never had more than 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. We had 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 12, we had another one picked. 6-12. Crazy. By the way, I don't think all of them are worth it. We're going to get into that in just a second. The Bears have made their bed. They're lying in it. I think they're doing the best that they can.
Yeah, I think Odunze was the right pick. He was there. If he wasn't available, I think when the Titans were on the clock, I had a message already typed up to you, ready to get sent, saying that with Odunze off the board, they should trade down and draft the best available player. But Tennessee took Jason Latham, of course, and Atlanta surprised everybody by taking Michael Penix. More on that later. Yeah. And so Odunze was there, so it made sense.
Yep.
Get the card to the commissioner before anybody could talk you out of trading down and not having a chance to draft him.
And then in the third round, the Bears have also got the Kareem Amadinje, the offensive tackle out of Yale, which I talked about last week, was somebody that the Bears should be targeting in the 3rd or 4th round.
And they got him.
So again, another good pick.
Good depth piece.
Great depth piece. Again, looking at this draft and how crazy it has been, and how much some of these picks are mind-boggling to look at. So Rich, overall, so far, I'm going to say thumbs up on the Bears. At this point,
thumbs up.
I don't think 4 and 5 and 4 through 7 you're going to screw up your draft. So I think they get a thumbs up on the weekend.
Yeah, I do have some hesitation with having with Adonze being the pick. Um, is last year in Seattle, Shane Walden had three great receivers in a rookie last year in Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and with the way he ran his offense, they just really didn't.
Sorry about
I,
that.
I mean, I didn't watch many Seattle games, but just looking at what the stats that those three receivers put up, it didn't. I I question how he's going to adjust his offense to having, in a sense, three number one receivers, depending on how you look at it, running the field, and Cole Kmet and George Everett. But I like it because if anything, if Keenan Allen walks after the first year, we have a number one receiver that can step right into his shoes.
Yeah. I mean,
If we don't re-sign him.
by the way, the team they have this year is the team that Justin Fields deserved to have the last 4 years.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree.
If you put, and I'm gonna say it, if you put Justin Fields is gonna go to Pittsburgh, and we're gonna see him by the time he's done in Pittsburgh. I predict that he will be considered an elite quarterback.
It would not surprise me one bit to see him make a Pro Bowl as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
He's got the skills. He now has the coaching, and he's got the line, the O line, and they'll get receivers around him. He's going to be in a great place. Justin Fields is going to be a Pro Bowler by the time he leaves there, and I'm going to say they're going to have good success. Wish him the best. But the Bears, Caleb Williams, do you think the Bears will make a Super Bowl by the time Caleb Williams is done in Chicago?
I'm going to go with a yes because it is easier to make it out of the NFC than it is the AFC.
Yep.
And it seems like they're putting the pieces in place that they could have sustained success, not a 1 year run,
Yeah.
1 or 2 year run like they had. Was it 07 when they
08.
rode a defense? 08 when they rode Rex Grossman and a great prolific defense to a Super Bowl loss, and then fell off the next year, or even 85 where they had back-to-back great years in 84, 85, and 86, and then fell off.
Yeah.
So I like what they're building. I like
do.
what they're building. They started some work on the defense, but you can take some chances. I wouldn't have been upset if they would have traded down from 9 to grab the best defender.
Yep.
With the way the board was falling, you had the number one pick. If you were going to draft defense, if you were zeroed in on a defensive guy, you essentially had the number one pick.
By the way,
all the way down to like 15.
15 is the first defensive player. How nuts is that? And then they went 3 in a row, and then you started seeing them coming off the board quickly, and man. Okay, let's get into other parts of the draft we want to talk about because there's a lot more to break down. How about let's talk about I'm gonna go not necessarily on here where you have it going, but we're gonna talk the first round, and we're gonna do first round reactions. After first round reactions, let's do that. I'm actually gonna flip it a little bit and talk about.
Okay.
Let's look at these 6 quarterbacks. 6 quarterbacks: Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., and J.J. McCarthy. I got all 6, right? Yeah.
And Bo Nix.
Oh, and Bo Nix. Denver was desperate, by the way. Bo Nix was a third-round pick.
They were. But at
Nix,
the same time,
man,
I think that they were afraid that the Raiders would have taken him at 13,
which they would have.
which I think they would have. I think too. But at the same time, I mean, Denver doesn't have a second round pick. So if they passed on him and were hoping that he dropped to the third round, he wasn't going to be there when they picked again in the
No,
third.
he wasn't. Okay, so let's go into what some of these the Commanders. I think that's the right move for them. I think Jalen Daniels can work great. Drake May in New England.
I still say you don't draft a football player, let alone a quarterback, from the University of North Carolina.
That's true too.
And he really doesn't have. I'm still questioning what his supporting cast is going to be up there like. I don't think he has
And that's
a
the
good
problem.
offensive line protecting him, and he doesn't have good receivers to throw to.
Here's something I'm going to point out. And honestly, it's going to come back to the Bears, and might be a shocker to some, but the last few years the Bears draft hasn't really looked that great. We've done some crazy things, but what we've been doing is we've been getting and putting. We're trying to put some stuff together so that we can hopefully make sure Caleb Williams is protected and has targets. We've gotten him tools, especially this offseason. We are setting that team up. You don't draft a quarterback unless you have people around him. That's what the Bears did with Justin Fields, which is why Justin is no longer on the team.
That's what they did with Mitch Trubisky, which is why he's no longer on the team.
Right. That's what New England did with Mac Jones. There's nobody around him up there. And they've lost the greatest quarterback we've seen in our lifetime. What's their plan? Magically, I don't even care if it was Caleb Williams. Magically, they're going to be the best team. It's going to turn around just because of a quarterback? No. Rich, when Alex Smith was the number one quarterback in Kansas City, and they drafted Patrick Mahomes, what did they have around to make sure that Alex Smith, wouldn't die, even though he almost did?
They still had a good offensive line, and they had a quarterback in place where they could sit Mahomes for an entire year.
Yep.
And I think that's what New England will do with Drake May, but Jacoby Brissett and Alex Smith there's a big talent gap between those two.
Yeah.
So I hope, regardless of how good or bad the season goes up in Boston, that they stick with Jacoby Brissett regardless of what the record is, so that they can make sure that Drake May is going to be learns and develops as a player before he sees meaningful game action.
Yep. I'm afraid Drake May is going to. I think Drake May is going to be the biggest burnout of this class of quarterbacks. So,
and in the case of what the Bears did with Trubisky, I'm glad that the Bears weren't the ones that drafted potential and drafted ready-made starting caliber talent this time around.
Yeah, which is what they needed to do. So let's talk about some of these other quarterbacks. We talked about Drake May. What are your thoughts on Jalen Daniels?
I think it's a good situation. They got the receivers. I think they have an offensive coordinator that's going to build a game plan around his skill set and not try to fit him into their own game plan. So it could look a lot like, I think you could see, I think Daniels is taller than Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray has done pretty well for himself up in down in Arizona. So as long as he can stay healthy, that's the concern I have with Daniels, is that He had one good season. It was a great season that won him a Heisman Trophy. But let's see if he can stay healthy and that they can scheme around him so that they can utilize his skill set. Other quarterbacks in the round, I want to save Penix for last.
Yeah, no,
So
I
think that
100%
there's a lot of great talking points around.
I actually want to
Penix,
save him and JJ kind of. I think they're tied together. By the way, I'm going to say that. But Bo
right,
Nix,
so
we've already
Bo Nix.
noticed. We've already pointed out he's the biggest reach in this draft. Biggest reach, but also the most necessary reach.
Totally. I mean, the depth chart in Denver isn't the best.
Nope.
You have Jarrett Stidham, who's been a career backup, and you got Zach Wilson, who was a reach 4 years ago.
Yep.
When he was drafted second overall by the Jets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with this Denver team, I think I would have passed on quarterback and just taken the best available and just see, all right, let's get the quarterback next year.
Yeah.
Let's get the quarterback next year unless there's a way for us to trade into the second round and snap up Bo Nix if he's there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's I don't really want to touch on JJ McCarthy because I think the Penix Jr. pick determined the McCarthy pick.
Okay. See, I don't think it does. I think that Minnesota wanted JJ McCarthy.
Okay.
I don't think that they were going up to. I don't think they were sniping the pick of what the Falcons wanted, and I don't think they would have taken Penix over McCarthy.
I think they should have at least.
Okay.
But Atlanta. By the way, we haven't even talked about the fact that Atlanta is being investigated for tampering. So next year, the Vikings are going to get their first round pick probably. How about that?
Okay.
And
I hadn't heard it being a first round pick with tampering charges. I think I've heard it is they could lose a draft pick, maybe not the first round draft pick, and it wouldn't necessarily go to the Vikings.
From my understanding,
they would forfeit a pick.
Yeah, I think it should. I mean, honestly, I think it should go to the Vikings. But I think if you're tampering with a player, here, real quick side tangent. If you're tampering with a player, that means you're talking to him while he's on the roster of another team before you're legally allowed to. If that's the case, shouldn't the team that he is on the roster of be granted your draft pick?
Maybe a draft pick, but I don't know about a first rounder.
Maybe not a first rounder, but at least a draft pick I think should happen. So, then they go and pick Michael Penix Jr.? They paid a quarterback $100 million for 4 years, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Michael Penix Jr., by the way, is 25 years old. He's a grown-ass man. Yep. So now, Penix has to... So, if Kirk Cousins goes down there and plays lights out, Penix doesn't get the job or doesn't get the starting role. If, number two, he plays for his full 4-year contract, now you don't get to see... The kid's going to be
20 years old by the time he gets on the field.
Right. And you've had to pick up his 5th-year option. And his first snap as starting quarterback for your team is on his 5th-year option.
Yeah, I mean,
how's that
Mike,
work?
I know a lot of people are. Yeah, I know a lot of people are saying, well, they're thinking of the future and doing what Green Bay did when they drafted Jordan Love. But the difference was Jordan Love was a prospect that fell and got picked in the 20s.
Right.
Not a guy that got picked. Not a guy that was the 4th quarterback off the board in the top 10.
And Atlanta had holes.
Atlanta has a lot of holes on defense.
They have defensive holes. They still have some offensive question marks. Like, they're not a complete team. Heck, if you use that pick to drop down, I guarantee you the Broncos would have given you everything plus the kitchen sink and a box of Cracker Jacks if you asked for it. So they could have gotten a quarterback they wanted. Or at least one that's not a... Or how about the Raiders?
Yeah, the Raiders were the Raiders is who I thought Penix would go to at 13. You had him going number 9.
I did. But like,
or heck,
there's
trade down
of...
with the Vikings. Trade down with the Vikings, and Penix probably would have been there.
Yeah.
Then you're getting to pay Penix less money because he got picked later in the first round.
I'm sitting here like, what is going through your mind? Hey, we have a hole in our offensive line. Let's pick up a quarterback. No!
We got nobody that can rush the passer. Let's get a backup quarterback. At number 8, you're not drafting a depth piece. At number 8, you're drafting a player that can impact your roster today.
That's what you're supposed to be doing.
They're in win-now mode with Kirk Cousins.
And now at this point, they're screwed. Danny, makes no sense.
Yeah. They better hope that they hit on their day 2 picks, which were both defensive linemen, because they missed a golden opportunity to either trade down and still get one of the draft's best defensive players, or drafting the best defensive player at number 8.
By the way, if let's say you think that that edge rusher out of UCLA is the number 1, which I was a bigger fan of Byron Murphy, you could have dropped down to 15. Heck, you could have dropped down to 17 and still gotten one of the top 3 defensive players in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Right, in the draft.
But they chose to look ahead to the future and draft Michael Penix.
By the way, in 2 years, when there's another draft class that's outrageously amazing and somehow Atlanta has a top 5 pick, I'm going to put it out there because their defense, they can score 1,000 points, but the defense lets 1,001 points score, so they're in the top 5 now. And there's this draft class of quarterbacks that makes Michael Penix Jr. look like an idiot. And they're only 2 years away from the end of Kirk Cousins' contract. What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that makes sense on this is that Kirk Cousins is coming back from an injury.
And one of those injuries that we have very low amount of seeing guys come back well from an ankle injury like this. And one of them is, and 2 of them are we're going to see this year how they come back.
Yep. So,
by the way, if that was your thinking,
so if Cousins gets injured, and Michael Penix goes in, has a great game, and maybe plays the next 3 or 4 games because you gotta rest Cousins, then you got a quarterback controversy on your hands. Do you really bench the guy that's being paid $180 million, or do you stick with the hot hand and stick with Penix?
Yeah, that's the biggest rub. By the way, if you were so worried that he was gonna get injured in a way that you have to put in a backup, so much so that you're gonna use an 8th round pick as a backup, why'd you pay him $100 million?
And I think that's what the owner wanted to know, because there's the video going around of the GM Terry Fontenot explaining to the owner why we're picking Penix, or why we picked Penix.
Okay, we got to get off this pick because I could sit here all day.
So that was obvious. Exactly. That was one of my picks that I had. It kind of has a head scratcher, And maybe if Cousins doesn't recover well or gets re-injured, maybe Terry Fontenot will look like a genius for picking Penix. But right now, I
But
still see it as kind of like a head scratcher.
Even if he does look like a genius for picking up Penix, then doesn't he look like an idiot for paying Kirk Cousins $100 million?
Yeah, he does.
Because you can't look like a genius because you picked up a quarterback in the eighth spot because you thought your current quarterback's going to get injured, and still look like a genius for paying the guy that you think is going to get injured $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things don't work together. Okay, we got to move on because Yeah.
All right. So while we're talking about head scratchers, the other team that I kind of identified as a head scratching move was the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
They traded with Kansas City to swap spots with Kansas City, who is their probably, wouldn't you say, is their biggest rival and biggest opponent in their way of making it to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen.
Yep.
And you gave Kansas City a number one wide receiver to help Patrick Mahomes when you yourself need a number one receiver to replace Stephon Diggs, who you chose to trade away to Houston.
Yep. And then now that's
I like who they picked. I like who they picked in the second round with Keenan Coleman. So maybe they felt comfortable trading back. Because they knew he's the guy they wanted to be there.
Here's the problem that I have with it. You mentioned that they in the second round. Well, then they go and they trade Carolina for that last pick in the draft in the first round. Like, to me, that's where the head scratcher really gets in. So they could get the number one over. I don't know.
A second round pick makes less than a first rounder,
I suppose.
Maybe the conversation with Carolina was before we trade you the pick. Who are you moving up the select? Okay, yeah, we didn't have an eye on that guy anyway. We'll go back one pick.
Yeah, so it's tough because the tracker that I have doesn't tell me exactly what the deals were. So I'm not sure exactly what all they got for it, but
I mean, I know Buffalo had a lot of holes to fill. They got a lot of holes to fill because they released a lot of guys due to cap constraints. But I would not have traded with Kansas City to give Kansas City the wide receiver they desperately needed and wanted in Xavier Worley. So, Mike, do you have any other head scratchers?
No, we talked about the one that I mean, other than the fact that Atlanta hates Carolina or Minnesota for some random reason. I still don't know why. I am a little confused on why Minnesota traded up one to get J.J. McCarthy. The Jets weren't going to take him.
But you don't know what other offers they may have been calling. They may have been receiving with Denver and Oakland, not Oakland, but Vegas picking behind them.
That's where I was going with it. I don't know. I personally think there's better things they could have done, but it didn't hurt them a ton. They didn't give up the other first round pick, which is good. I'm happy with it. I feel bad for Vikings fans because I think Penix would have been a better fit for them, but we'll see. Now, what's your favorite pick? What's your favorite? Your most liked move to have happened over the last 2 days?
I got two teams that I liked what they did.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start with the Rams, as they had holes to fill along the defensive line and pass rushers, getting Jared Verse from Florida State and his teammate Brandon Fisk, also from Florida State in the first two rounds. And they pick up a versatile running back in Blake Corum from Michigan. So I liked what the Rams did. They plugged holes along their defense, and they get a versatile running back to play with Karan Williams, who kind of broke out last year.
Yeah, So my biggest like is actually the Arizona Cardinals.
All right.
Picking Marvin Harris Jr. is huge for them. I think it reinvigorates and will help Kyler Murray come back out. I mean, Kyler Murray has been like, I know that there's all the talk about his no video game part of the contract and all that other stuff. But when you look at what he's done the past few years, he's actually been a really good quarterback. The team hasn't been around him that he needed, and I think the pick of Marvin Harris Jr. is the biggest step forward for them. They also are shoring up their defense a bit, and I mean, I like it. I think that they've done quite a bit of stuff. And the other thing is, as an Illinois fan, they've picked up 2 Illinois players in the 3rd round. So there's that. Okay, and Rich, what is your second team that you?
I'm gonna go with Indy.
Okay.
Picking up a good defensive guy in Lado Lido, and a solid wide receiver in Adonai Mitchell. A lot of people had Mitchell going in the 1st round, and they picked him up in the 2nd. I think he'll pair well with Pittman and Alec Pierce to give Anthony Richardson a pretty good set of weapons.
Okay, I am going to also put in, I have one more team that I want to talk about, and did the best job in the 1st round of any team of not screwing it up. And I'm going to go with the Vegas Raiders.
Okay.
Now, hear me out. Vegas needs a quarterback. Desperately needs a quarterback. You know what they didn't do with the 13th pick overall? They didn't scramble and say, well, we got to get a quarterback. No. They said, the quarterbacks that we wanted are off the board. We did our best to get up there. Now we're going to take the best player on the board with Brock Bowers. By the way, he probably should have been a top 5 pick overall. How about that? If we look at truly the top 5, who should have been the top 5 picks overall? The top 3 went 4, 6, and 9. And then you have 4 and 5 going 1 and 2. But how about Jared Verse going 19? That man, but Brock Bowers is amazing as a tight end, and he drops all the way to 13. He's a top 10 prospect easily. I'm looking at the board and where these top prospects, how far some of them drop. Nobody picked up defensive players until 15. I'm blown away at how that went. So, okay. Rich, anything else in the draft you want to talk about?
I mean, to kind of piggyback off your Raiders, I mean, then they picked up a solid offensive lineman in Jackson Powers Johnson too.
Yeah,
he's a good. A lot of mock drafts had him going in the 1st round, and they got him in the 2nd without having to move around the board. As well.
So I think that the Raiders they're making. So here's the thing. In years previous, we've seen the Raiders do some of the dumbest things in the draft. Overreach, trade away, all the things that we think. Not today, not this weekend. They've been very methodical about it. They've been very smart about it, and they've done what they've needed to do and make picks. With their picks, they've picked who they think is the best man on the board. That's a good way to do a draft. You will rarely fail if you always get the top guy that you can. And it sounds like one of those basic analyst moves, but okay. With that, Rich, let's give a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about The Masked Singer. If you don't follow Masked Singer and don't want to listen to it, okay, we'll see you next week. If you do, and you haven't gotten to watch this week's episode, please pause, come back and see us later. We'll be here. You know how to find us. If you've not done any of that and you don't care, and you like listening to our voices, you can continue to listen. Or if you just don't care and whatever, stick around. Also, finally, and more importantly, Rich, they want to listen. They're watching us here on Facebook. They want to listen to us in their car. How should they do that?
You know what? Look us up wherever you download and listen to all of your other popular podcasts, like on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, whatever they're calling it now. Look for us, and we'll be there. Mike, if they're listening to us in podcast land and want to see the visual version of our show, but don't like Facebook, where can they find us?
You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/ballsandsticks. Look for Rich and I playing baseball in tuxedos. Finally, if you want to participate in our poll questions or interact with the show live, check us out on facebook.com/ballsandsticks or facebook.com/fans of balls and sticks. At this time, we're going into The Masked Singer. You've been properly warned. This week, we saw the girl power night, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think?
I thought it was a good show. I thought I was kind of surprised by who went home, though.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised.
I haven't watched it yet, but
okay.
I'm looking at things, and I'm like, I can't believe who went home. I mean, unless like the person that went home fell flat on their face, and the head of the costume came off, so they're like, well, you're eliminated. Like, that's the only way I could potentially seeing it happen with watching the first episode that they were on.
Not at all. I mean, I thought for sure that the Seal, who was our wild card this week, was the one going home.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of plays into my theory of that if the panelists have a other than Ken Jung saying, I know exactly who this is. If they end up knowing who it is, that person's going home.
Yeah.
That person usually gets sent home because they don't. I think the show doesn't want to hear, you know what, I've been saying the past 3 weeks. I'm pretty sure I know this is this person.
Yep.
They don't want to hear the panel guessing the same person every single week.
Yep. I agree.
So it was Jennifer Allen, if I remember correctly.
Jennifer Lewis.
I know it was Jennifer.
And she was playing Miss Cleo.
Yes. Cat Cleopatra.
Yeah.
She did a great job with the song she ended up choosing that week. I think the Seal, well, obviously it's going to be a double elimination next week because they don't have the Bell, but I don't really think there is a Bell candidate amongst this group of singers.
I think if Cat Cleo would have been around, I didn't hear the performances, so I can't 100% speak on it, but I think she probably would have been the one if she was in the bottom with. I think
it was the Seal.
Even.
The Seal was put into the bottom 5.
Yeah.
It was the Gumball. Yeah, it was the Gumball and.
Yep. Okay, with that, let me give you a real quick recap on Mario Kart and League of Legends. Mario Kart, we had we finished our match from the tornado match, so that's good. We actually lost that match. We did not do great. we're the number 2 or 3 team in the state, and we were facing the team that's opposite. That's the opposite. If we're 2, they're 3. If we're 3, they're 2. We were facing them and the number 1 team in the state, all in the same division, and it wasn't great, but we did all right. League of Legends found out this week there are only 11 teams, and 12 teams get to go to the playoffs. So we'll have to do a playoff game in the next week or two. We should go to state for Mario Kart, no problem. That shouldn't be a big deal. We'll go. It'll be great. League of Legends might also get to go to state. We'll see what happens with that. We also had a massive in-person match for Mario Kart on Tuesday, which was our normal scheduled match. Clarion Goldfield, which is 2.5 hours away, came up. They had 4 parents come because they were so excited about it. We had parents from Spirit Lake come up. We had our own parents there. We had a mom, literally as I was saying goodbye and thanks for coming to the Clarion Goldfield coach. We had a mom that was in tears about how excited she was to watch her kid get to play competitively in front of other people. And she's like, we're doing this. By next year, we will have this the ability to set this up so we can do this. She loved it. And my guys loved it. I think we're going to try to do this more and more. And Clarion's already said that if we play them for Smash Brothers, they're going to come up if we're hosting. And I already have permission that if we're playing them, we can go down. So it's going to be great. I loved it. I'm excited. Anyway, with that, Rich, do you have any shout-outs before we end the show?
I do not.
I do. I actually have a couple.
Okay.
Well, I'll go with the one. My cousin Tim Scranton is getting married this weekend. Him and his wife are doing a destination wedding. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. And that's exciting this week. So congratulations, Tim and Jill. And then next week, I'll give a shout out. Next week's going to be weird. We got to talk about that. We'll get off of this call and then get on a regular phone call or something because we have a bunch of stuff we need to talk about.
Gotcha.
For next week's show. But we will see you next week. Rich, anything else you need before you get to take us out?
I do not, Mike. So why don't you go ahead and roll that outro.
Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa. This is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich.